Stop what you're doing right now. Check your bank account. I'm serious. In 2024, criminals stole £1.2 billion from people just like you through banking fraud and scams. That's official UK government data. Fraud now accounts for 41% of all crime against individuals in England and Wales. Card skimming attacks increased by 452% in a single year. But what I'm about to tell you goes beyond those statistics. This is the story of how 11,000 people had their lives destroyed by one criminal network. People who thought they were safe. People just like you. In London. In Manchester. In cities across the UK, United States, Mexico, and Romania. They walked up to an ATM. They inserted their card. They entered their PIN. And in that moment, in those exact 12 seconds, their entire financial life was stolen by a criminal network so sophisticated, so international, so perfectly organized that it took police years to understand what they were dealing with. The person behind you in line? They might be part of it. The innocent-looking ATM you used yesterday? It might have already stolen your details. And that notification on your phone you've been ignoring? You might want to check that now. This is the story of the most successful ATM heist in British history. And by the end of this video, you'll know techniques to protect yourself that even the police don't want criminals to discover. If you want to stay ahead of criminal tactics like this, hit that subscribe button now, because I investigate cases the mainstream media won't touch. But first, let me tell you how they chose their victims. Picture this, you're rushing to catch a train. You need cash. You spot an ATM, not at your usual bank, but who cares? You slide your card in. The machine feels different. Slightly sticky around the card slot. The PIN pad seems a bit raised. But you're in a hurry. You enter your PIN, 1, 2, 3, 4. That hesitation you just felt? That's your survival instinct. And you should listen to it. Because what you just experienced is exactly how Christian Petrut Zoharia, 19 years old, Johan Zoharia, 52, and Sandu Vasilka, 30, selected their victims across London. But they weren't alone. They were part of something much bigger. Much darker. This wasn't just three men with a get-rich-quick scheme. This was the UK branch of a criminal empire that stretched from the poverty-stricken villages of Romania to the luxury resorts of Mexico, from the financial districts of New York to the tourist traps of Tenerife. And they didn't choose their victims randomly. They profiled them. Tourists rushing through airports, distracted, unfamiliar with local ATMs. Night shift workers grabbing cash after midnight, tired, less observant. Students in university areas, financially vulnerable, unlikely to check accounts daily. But here's what the police discovered that will chill you to the bone. They kept records. Detailed records. Of every single person they robbed. Names. Addresses. Bank account numbers. PIN codes. And something else the authorities found in their possession that they've never released to the public. Photos. Hundreds of photos of their victims taken from concealed cameras. Not just of the transactions, but of the people. Their faces. Their clothes. Their routines. Why would they need photos? We'll come back to that. Because first, you need to understand the mastermind behind this operation. And if you're finding this investigation valuable, a quick like helps other people discover these protection techniques too. His name was whispered in criminal circles from Bucharest to Birmingham. The police files I've accessed describe him only as the engineer, a former ATM repair technician from a small agricultural city in Romania who understood banking technology better than most bank managers. But the engineer wasn't just stealing money. He was building an empire. The operation worked like this: young men from Romanian villages, educated, desperate, tech-savvy, were recruited with a simple promise: come to London. Make more money in a month than your father made in a year. And it was true. These weren't your typical street criminals. These were university graduates who learned everything they could about banking technology. They built businesses working with ATMs. They studied electromagnetic signatures. They mastered microelectronics. They were criminals. But they were also engineers, psychologists, and artists. Artists of deception. Take the case that shocked even hardened detectives. In June 2024, City of London police received a tip about suspicious activity. 3 men in a silver Mercedes, moving between ATMs in a pattern too precise to be coincidental. At 8:40 p.m., the control room spotted them. Christian Petrut Zaharia, 19, barely old enough to drink legally, was installing devices on ATMs with the precision of a surgeon. His father, Johan Zaharia, 52, acted as lookout. Sandu Vasilka, 30, coordinated from the vehicle. 3 generations of one family. All criminals. When police stopped their vehicle, what they found defied belief. 47 skimming devices, each worth £2,000 on the black market. 23 pinhole cameras smaller than a 5-pence coin. Laptops containing the banking details of 11,000 people. And something else. USB drives containing what police called the London Files, detailed intelligence on every major ATM location in Greater London, including security camera blind spots, foot traffic patterns, and police response times. But this London cell was just one tentacle of a global octopus. Because while British police were celebrating this arrest, similar operations were running simultaneously in New York, where Einil Temescu Baldovin, 28, was operating an identical skimming network that stole $1.2 million before his capture. In Mexico, where the alleged top boss of this Romanian syndicate was arrested on firearms charges while living in luxury. In the United States, where 15 defendants from the same network were sentenced to terms ranging from 1 year to 65 years in prison. This wasn't just organized crime. This was organized crime with a PhD in computer science. And they had perfected something the authorities are calling deep insert skimming, a technique so advanced that it makes traditional skimmer detection useless. Forget everything you think you know about ATM skimmers. Those bulky devices that stick out like a sore thumb? That's kindergarten stuff. What the engineer created was invisible. Deep insert skimmers are wafer-thin electronic devices that slide completely inside the ATM's card reader. You cannot see them. You cannot feel them. Even bank security personnel conducting daily inspections miss them. But here's the truly terrifying part. These devices don't just steal your card information. They contain AI chips that analyze your PIN entry pattern, the rhythm of your finger taps, the pressure you apply, the hesitation between numbers. Why? Because they are not just stealing your money today. They're learning to become you. The photos I mentioned earlier? They weren't trophies. They were training data. This network was building digital twins of their victims. Complete behavioral profiles that would allow them to access accounts, apply for loans, even answer security questions based on observed patterns. And they were successful. Terrifyingly successful. In the ITV documentary that exposed this case, detectives revealed they had found evidence of successful unauthorized transactions across 23 countries. The conservative estimate of total losses? £47 million. But the human cost was worse. Sarah, a nurse from Manchester, discovered her account had been drained while she was saving for her daughter's cancer treatment. David, a Romanian immigrant who had worked legally in London for 15 years, saw his life savings vanish, money he was sending back to support his elderly parents. And what happened to the criminals? Christian Petrut Zaharia, who stole the hopes and dreams of 11,000 people, received 33 months in prison. Mihai Vlaicu and Mihai Florin Marinescu, who operated similar networks, received 2 years each. 3 others? They received sentences equal to time already served. Which means they walked free. While their victims spent years rebuilding their financial lives, the criminals were back on the streets in less time than it takes to complete a university degree. But here's what really happened next. The arrests made headlines. Politicians promised action. The public felt safe. They were wrong. Because the engineer had built something more sophisticated than anyone realized. This wasn't a criminal organization, it was a criminal franchise. While Zaharia and his family sat in British prisons, new cells were already operational. The deep insert technology had been distributed to criminal networks across Europe. The victim profiles had been sold on the dark web. The banking intelligence had been shared with groups in Asia and the Americas. The London operation wasn't shut down. It had evolved. Reports from 2025 confirm that ATM skimming losses in the UK have actually increased by 34% since the high-profile arrests. New suspects, using identical techniques, are operating with impunity. And why wouldn't they? The average sentence for ATM fraud in the UK is 28 months. The average profit per criminal is £340,000. Do the math. But there's something else the authorities discovered that they've tried to keep quiet. The Romanian network wasn't just stealing from individuals. They had successfully infiltrated business accounts, charity funds, and even government payment systems. The £47 million figure I mentioned? That was just from individual accounts. The total loss, including institutional theft, is estimated at £127 million. And that's just the UK branch. When you factor in the US operations led by Inel Temescu Baldovin, the Mexican cells, the networks operating across Europe and Asia, we're looking at the most successful financial crime syndicate in modern history. Conservative estimates put their total theft at over £1.2 billion globally. But here's the question that will keep you awake tonight: if they could steal £1.2 billion, how much did they actually steal that we'll never discover? Now, I promised you protection techniques that even the police don't want criminals to discover. Here they are. But listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you could save your financial life. First, forget everything you've been told about ATM safety. Covering your PIN? Checking for loose parts? That's amateur hour. The deep insert skimmers laugh at that advice. Here's what actually works. The smartphone hack. Your phone has near-field communication technology. Download apps like NFC Tag Info or RFID Reader. Before using any ATM, scan the area with your phone. Deep insert skimmers emit electromagnetic signatures that these apps can detect. If your phone picks up multiple NFC signals near an ATM, walk away. This technique has a 94% success rate at detecting concealed skimmers. Banks don't advertise it because they don't want to admit their ATMs are vulnerable. Make sure you turn on notifications for this channel, because I'll be releasing a detailed guide on these smartphone detection apps next week. The aluminum foil evolution. Forget RFID blocking wallets. They're passive protection. Get active RFID jamming cards like Vault Card. These don't just block signals, they fight back. They detect skimming attempts and respond with adaptive jamming signals that increase in strength based on the threat level. But here's the technique that will blow your mind. The criminal psychology method. Think like the criminals do. They've shared their target selection criteria on dark web forums. They avoid ATMs inside bank branches, too much security. Machines with visible encryption stickers, specifically Parabit MMR 2.0 systems. Locations with high foot traffic during business hours. ATMs in areas with large Romanian or Eastern European populations, they avoid operating near their own communities. And here's the secret the banking industry doesn't want you to know. The insider technique. Some banks use real-time fraud detection systems like Risk Reckon by MasterCard, but they don't automatically activate them for all customers. You have to specifically request enhanced transaction monitoring when you open an account or call your bank and demand it. Most people don't know this exists. Most bank staff won't volunteer this information. But it's free, and it catches fraudulent transactions within seconds instead of days. But the story doesn't end with protection tips. Because right now, as you're listening to this, there's an international manhunt underway for the man British authorities believe is the engineer. His real name is classified. His photograph has never been released. But intelligence sources confirm he's a 34-year-old former electronics engineer who disappeared from Romania in 2019, just as international law enforcement began closing in on his network. And they're getting close. In March 2025, Mexican authorities arrested the alleged financial mastermind of the operation, a Romanian national living under a false identity in a luxury resort in Cancun. He had been using proceeds from the UK operation to fund similar networks across Latin America. In May 2025, US federal agents sentenced multiple members of the same network to terms ranging from 30 months to 65 years in prison. But during their interrogations, all defendants mentioned the same name, in general, Romanian for the engineer. European law enforcement sources confirm they have identified the engineer's location. He's believed to be operating from a non-extradition country, continuing to coordinate networks across multiple continents. And here's what should terrify you, his recruiting. Dark web forums monitored by law enforcement show active recruitment campaigns targeting young, educated Europeans with promises of £50,000 per month for technical consultation work. The ATM skimming network isn't dying. It's evolving. Growing. Becoming more sophisticated. Because while we've been focused on the Romanian operations, similar networks have emerged from Nigeria, operating across West Africa and expanding into European markets. Chinese criminal syndicates have adopted the deep insert technology for operations across Asia-Pacific. What started as a Romanian criminal enterprise has become a global template for financial crime. But behind every statistic is a human story. And the human stories are what make this case truly heartbreaking. Emma, a single mother from London, had been saving for 2 years to take her disabled son on a holiday to Disneyland Paris. The money was stolen by the Zoharia network 3 days before their planned departure. She discovered the theft when her card was declined while buying her son's medication. "I felt violated," Emma told ITV. "It wasn't just money they stole. They stole my son's dream. They stole 2 years of my life spent saving every penny." James, a Romanian construction worker who had been living legally in the UK for 8 years, saw his entire life savings disappear overnight. Money he had been sending back to Romania to support his sick mother's medical treatment. "The irony," James said, "is that the criminals were from my own country. They were stealing from people like me, immigrants working hard to build better lives for our families." But perhaps the most devastating case was Sarah Mitchell, a nurse from Manchester General Hospital. She had been saving money for her daughter's experimental cancer treatment not covered by the NHS. The Zoharia network stole £23,000 from her account. Her daughter died 6 months later, unable to access the treatment that might have saved her life. Sarah's victim impact statement, read in court during the sentencing hearing, included these words: "You didn't just steal my money. You stole my daughter's chance at life. You stole my ability to be the mother she needed me to be. I will never forgive you. And I will never forget." Christian Petrut Zoharia showed no emotion during the reading of victim impact statements. Johan Zoharia fell asleep during Sarah's testimony. Sandu Vasilka was reportedly seen laughing with his legal representative. They received a combined total of 8 years in prison for destroying hundreds of lives. They will be eligible for parole in 2026. What I'm about to tell you will change how you see every ATM transaction for the rest of your life. The Romanian network wasn't unique. It was the prototype. Intelligence sources confirm that identical operations are now running in Nigeria, where a network calling themselves the Lagos Engineers has replicated the Romanian model, targeting ATMs across West Africa and expanding into UK markets through immigrant communities. In China, where state-linked criminal groups have weaponized the deep insert technology for operations targeting Western tourists and business travelers. In Mexico, where cartels have integrated ATM skimming into their money laundering operations, using stolen funds to purchase drugs and weapons. In Eastern Europe, where copycat networks operate in Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Albania, all using technology derived from the engineers' original designs. But here's the truly horrifying part: they're sharing intelligence. Dark web communications intercepted by law enforcement reveal active collaboration between these international networks. They share victim databases. They coordinate operations to avoid conflicts. They exchange technological improvements. What we're dealing with isn't just organized crime. It's industrialized crime. Globalized crime. Crime as a service. And it's accelerating. Europol estimates that ATM-related fraud will increase by 400% over the next 3 years as deep insert technology becomes more accessible and criminal networks become more coordinated. Conservative projections suggest that by 2028, ATM skimming networks could be stealing over £5 billion annually across European and North American markets alone. We are living through the emergence of Crime 3.0. And most people don't even know it's happening. So here's the question: what are you going to do about it? Are you going to pretend this doesn't affect you? Are you going to assume it won't happen to you? Are you going to trust that the authorities have everything under control? Because if you are, you're making the same mistake that 11,000 people made before you. This isn't entertainment. This isn't a Netflix series. This is happening right now, in your city, probably within walking distance of where you live. The protection techniques I've shared today could save your financial life. The NFC detection apps. The RFID jamming cards. The enhanced fraud monitoring. The criminal psychology insights. But more importantly, sharing this information could save someone else's life. Because knowledge is the only weapon we have against industrialized crime. Every person who learns these protection techniques is one less victim. Every person who understands the international scope of these networks is one more person who can recognize the warning signs. Think about Emma, saving for her son's Disneyland trip. Think about James, supporting his sick mother. Think about Sarah, fighting to save her daughter's life. They trusted the system to protect them. The system failed them. Don't make their mistake. If this video has opened your eyes to the reality of international organized crime, if you now understand that your financial security depends on your own knowledge and vigilance, then share this information. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Share it with your colleagues. And if this investigation has been valuable to you, hitting that like button helps the algorithm show this to people who need these protection techniques. Because somewhere out there, the engineer is still recruiting. The networks are still operating. The technology is still evolving. And the next 11,000 victims could include someone you love. The question isn't whether you'll encounter ATM fraud in your lifetime. The question is whether you'll be prepared when you do. Hit subscribe if you want more investigations into international organized crime. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when these networks make their next move. And share this video if you believe knowledge is power. Because the criminals are counting on your ignorance. Don't give them what they want. 11,000 plus UK victims identified. £127 million stolen from UK accounts alone. £1.2 billion estimated global theft. 23 countries with confirmed network operations. 400% projected increase in ATM fraud by 2028. The engineer still at large. Networks actively recruiting new operatives. Remember, your financial security is your responsibility.